Thanks for tuning in to an episode of the QAD Customer Podcast. We recorded one live here at the Midwest User Group. Make sure you check out both Broom Street and Pickstock Labs LinkedIn. We've got some good posts coming out about the event and the recording of the podcast that we did. We had Scott Nigh on this time from Adaptivity. He was the former CIO of AutoKineton, and he dives into some awesome content about how to think about new products coming into the QAD space, how to think about driving business results as a part of IT, and how to help empower the business in the IT function, which is very applicable for a lot of the IT departments represented here at the Midwest User Group. We're excited to have the podcast sponsored by both Pickstock Live and by Broom Street. So definitely check them out, and thank you guys again for joining another episode. Cool. Well, thanks, Scott, for hopping on the QAD Customer Podcast. I know you guys recently brought Daniel Dim onto the group, and he's been a returning guest onto the show. So glad to have you on, and thank you, Daniel, in the background behind the camera for bringing him on. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Cool. Cool. Well, so I wanted to start out. If you don't know Scott, you've been living under a rock in the QAD space. Showed up on those cool like customer success videos that QAD put together a little while back, and has been in the QAD space for a while, from what I've heard. But I'll kind of let him kind of go through some of the background. So tell us about how you got initially started in automotive.
In automotive?
Yeah.
Wow. So I actually started as an intern for A.O. Smith Data Systems back in 1985.
They're a QAD user, right?
A.O. Smith, the A.O. Smith Corporation, the water products company, yes, they were a QAD user. But I came into the Data Systems subsidiary, which focused on doing IT work for the rest of the corporation, and then they also did electronic funds transfer switches.
Yeah.
And 86, they sold that part of the business to Deluxe Check Printers. The rest of us all became part of A.O. Smith Automotive, one of their biggest division.
Okay.
So
Deluxe, that's like the well-known Deluxe
guys
checks,
that printed the checks, yeah.
Pretty sure we just got some, didn't we, Jason?
Yep.
Deluxe checks.
So they got involved in the ATM switch software and took that. So we were left to be part of the A.O. Smith Corporation. So being part of automotive at that time, that was how I got involved.
Okay.
And
cool.
From there, it just progressed until Tower acquired that division in 1997.
So that's how you ended up at Tower.
That's how I ended up at Tower.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Cool. I didn't know that. So it was a database role.
Well, no, I started I came out with a business degree in management of computer systems. So I was doing programming. Different systems.
Wow.
Got involved in.
He's using this degree.
I was. I got involved in a lot of different things, from HR systems to shop floor systems. The first system was a custom-built shop floor management system. So started in that, and then continued in that, moving up through management and into the other areas.
Okay, so then what was that transition like, moving from, because that sounds like, I didn't realize you had some experience being a part of a company that got acquired then.
Oh, yeah.
So initially, so what was that transition like, and what was kind of the journey through the ranks at Tower like?
Well, we were acquired in 97, and so that was, it was interesting because you didn't know what to expect, and they had a completely different management style than what A.O. Smith was running at the time. And so honestly, it was a challenge for a few years because we ran kind of a centralized IT group, and they ran very decentralized. We had a lot of standards in place, and they were growing very quickly by acquiring companies, but hadn't integrated anything together.
Got it.
So, you wanted to send email to someone, they had multiple email systems that didn't necessarily really work well together. So eventually there started a journey to say, the CFO at the time said, let's try and move things more towards a centralized environment. But you couldn't say the word centralized. The CEO would not allow it. So it was kind of a under the sheets. And we were running IT as a profit center inside it. So that was a whole new dynamic as well, challenge.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah. We sent invoices, and no one liked how much we charged for the
got it.
service. But it was just, honestly, it's a different way of allocating the budget.
Right. So, okay. So it's more like just internal type billing type stuff. Okay. Got it.
But you basically put it out saying, oh, well, you don't have to use us.
Got it.
But reality is they're going to use you. They would just complain about it. But,
got it.
But through that process, though, we started, doing a lot of things as far as implementation. QAD kind of came in back, before that.
Okay.
But how it was being implemented, how it was being rolled out, went through some fits and starts in there. And then really, probably 2004 timeframe, it really started to take off. And, we really had a lot of standards in place.
Okay.
And growing through that.
Yeah. So did that comment that, we're at the Midwest User Group here in Cleveland this week, and Anton, CEO of QAD, gave the keynote. He mentioned having some of those standards in place and sort of the sending out a single memo with the change as opposed to trying to replicate that change across so many different types of businesses running different processes at that point. Is that kind of the central, because it's a dichotomy, right? There's like empowering the people, for utilizing technology, but then there's the management of that technology, which could be somewhat at odds between centralized, decentralized, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of the focus is, when you think about centralization in that standpoint, it's not necessarily centralizing, saying, thou shalt do this.
Right.
It's, look, if we're going to define product lines, they're going to be consistent product lines.
Right.
How we define that product line doesn't impact how you run your operations on the floor.
Okay.
So you still have your local control. How do we do things? And the key from an organization that's supporting that type of environment is, how do I work with that local team to understand what are the challenges they face?
Right.
All right, you know what? I can't just run the software this way. We need to tune it because you have this process that we need to be able to handle more effectively.
Okay.
But it's all within the construct of those standards that you set up.
Yeah. It's funny. We'll get to this in a second, but I don't know if it's deliberate or not, but it's really setting up where you're at now pretty well.
Definitely.
So eventually, you became Chief Information Officer at Tower. So what was the, and I'm sure, this being a QAD customer podcast, a lot of the listeners here, I'm sure are, IT managers, directors of IT, potentially, on that trajectory, have that aspiration. So what kind of words of advice would you give there, or what was the process like for you, kind of migrating down that path?
Yeah. Well, it was a long process because the CIO before me. Actually, he and I shared an office when I was an intern.
Okay.
So it wasn't like he was a guy 20 years my senior.
So
we had worked together a long time. We actually had a pretty cohesive team that worked with each other for a long time. But I had moved up into become a director. I was director over software development and integration, and then folded in the global the business applications.
Okay.
So our QAD environments, the PeopleSoft environments for HCM, and any of those other related environments. And as we were expanding that globally, I was responsible for managing all of that. So I think that the key for me, and part of it, I wasn't focused on just software development.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier I'd gotten a business degree. So
right.
I really enjoyed interacting with the business and working with them, solving those problems.
Right.
And I think for people that are progressing up, you don't tend to find a lot of CIOs that are, I was the guy writing assembler code back here. They're the people that can communicate with business. And I think that's a key thing for anyone aspiring is, you need to be able to have those intelligent conversations with the business people. If you're talking to production folks, materials managers, it's good to understand the concepts that they're having to deal with, so that you can, deal effectively there.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really getting a full depth and breadth to the understanding of how the software is actually being applied.
Exactly.
Day to day. Okay.
And that's where you hear it a lot, where people talk about, IT is that group that a lot of time cuts across the whole business. They see business processes all across the functional areas.
Yeah.
Where some other areas may be more siloed to that effect. And so bringing that to bear, bringing that knowledge forward as far as this is what we see going on here, and I can see where this could help you out over here,
Yeah.
that's a value you bring to the organization, and helping people understand that for cost reductions, streamlining processes is a good thing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So then you served as the CIO for Tower for a bit. How long were you in that role?
I was in that for about 3 years.
3 years.
Before we got bought out by private equity.
Okay. All right. So what was that process moving from, that's a familiar situation for the QAD space, right? Of having the move to private equity.
It wasn't the first time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So how was that?
Well, so in my case, we were the company that was acquired.
Okay.
Tower was acquired by Auto Kineton.
Yes. Yeah.
And so Auto Kineton they had purchased a company beforehand, L&W Products.
Okay.
And so they pretty much had that management team in place, and they looked at it, and for the most part, they made the decision to stick with most of their management team.
Okay.
So on the Tower side, most of the executive team was on the short end of the stick, which that's what happens in PE.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, we all understand that.
Yeah.
So that just gave time to sit back and go, well, what do I want to do?
Right.
Do I want to go back in corporate side?
Yeah.
Do I want to do something else?
Yeah.
So they were able to think about that a little bit more.
Okay. And then that's when you were ultimately decided, you know what, let's move into the consulting space.
So actually, so that acquisition happened at the end of September 2019.
Okay.
And I think probably about 2 or 3 months later, I got a call from John Graham, and who we had known each other for many years, and he just asked, "Hey, what are you doing these days?"
Yeah.
I said, "Well, not quite sure."
Yeah.
And at the time, he was running consulting at Strategic.
Yeah.
And he was thinking of going off and starting a new company, a new consulting company, a new partner in the QAD space.
Yeah.
And was I interested?
Yeah.
And so that started going, and in June of 2020, Adaptivity was born.
Okay, wow.
So right in the middle of COVID.
Yeah. That's a good time. It was an interesting time for, I think, the QAD space, because there was different types of needs, and I mean, I'm sure this was across the board, right? But being in technology in the QAD space with a lot of industry that moves very slowly,
right?
And then all of a sudden they have this force agent that's like, hey, you got to figure out how to adapt to this, big change. That's a good time to start it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times before that had you heard anyone say, "Hey, we did a QAD go live with no one on site"?
Right. Never.
You never heard that.
Yeah, never.
So there were definitely dynamics changing things.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the big differences that you've seen here, between the corporate structure, corporate life, to being a part of a new QAD partner? How's that transition?
Well, I mean, on a personal side, it gives me a little more freedom to do things. Although we're growing the business, so I'll qualify that as if you talk to my wife, she's like, you need to stop working sometimes.
It's like the entrepreneur dilemma. You have the freedom to work 80 hours a week.
Exactly. But the freedom I do get is I don't necessarily have to be in my home office in Michigan in a cold winter. I'm now in my home office in warm Florida doing the same thing.
There you go. I love it. That's good. Hopefully you're claiming residency in Florida.
Oh, no, I'm full-time there.
Okay,
we moved full-time
cool,
there this past July.
That's cool. Very nice. Congrats. Cool.
Thanks.
So where does Adaptivity sit, as far as the consulting space in QAD? Is it full service? Do you guys have kind of a niche that you're looking at? Or
we're a full service partner.
Yeah.
We are a QAD consulting partner, and continuing to have the discussions as far as, we want to be more.
Right.
And as far as what we bring to the table, I mean, during my career, we didn't use consulting organizations a lot, and a lot of it was, if I'm going to use consulting organization, I want to make sure, they're bringing someone to the table that can be effective and so forth. So, and as you well know, I mean, there's not a lot of young people in the QAD space. So for the most part, you have people that they're not learning on the job. But we wanted to make sure that we were coming in being unbiased, and it's not a slam against QAD, but if QAD is saying, hey, this is the product, should do it. In some cases, that's not the right fit.
Right.
It's not the right fit for that company, and we wanted to make sure we were, someone who could say, hey, for you, maybe not the right way to go.
Absolutely.
And so bringing that on, a lot of people say it, but to bring that unbiased opinion to it, and coming from John having that consulting experience, but he was in industry before that.
Yeah. And, he hopped around to a couple good QAD names.
He had done a QAD selection and implementation, and he was a CIO and general manager. So So I think both of us having that industry experience, understanding what people are going through, what challenges you deal with. It brings a mindset. I think that we can be relate a little bit better as opposed to, hey, how do I just get billable hours?
Right.
I mean, obviously, obviously we're in this to make some money, but there's definitely a satisfaction in bringing value to our customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then doing that at scale. It's like another big deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so what does like a typical project look like for you guys?
Well, it's kind of varied. I mean, you look at the different things we do. We've actually, being that we're still pretty young, and COVID kind of put a lot of things on hold. There's been a lot of things that we've gone in, I'll call them cleanup activities. There was an implementation, but hey, things weren't good, and so we're coming in and bringing a different perspective and helping to fix things there. And we've had a lot of projects like that. A lot of things that are focused in areas, and we've got employees of ours that they're Apex experts. They bring a lot of that knowledge, and quite frankly, in manufacturing, I think the materials organizations are probably the organizations that are hurting the most. They have a lot of turnover, and a lot of time that expertise, if you get some, it disappears. So having people on our team that can come in and help there, I think is good. But we've been growing, and we've been adding, we don't have just contract. We have a lot of W-2 staff, and we've been growing that. Daniel just coming on recently. We've expanded our sales organization to get more of that reach.
That's awesome.
Continue to grow.
Congrats, guys.
Thanks.
That's pretty cool.
It is. It's fun.
It's probably like a unique situation. It's new, right?
If we're not growing, then
you're dying. That's what I always say. If you're not growing, you're dying. That's right. That's the way it is. Market decides, not us, right? Cool. Great. So what do you? I mean, there's a lot of changes obviously happening in the QAD space. What sorts of questions or thoughts would you recommend QAD users bringing to the forefront of their mind, whether it's, and you can take it in multiple different directions, I'm sure, whether it's management, IT, business application, being part of the business, back office, shop floor, whatever it might be. But what are some of the things that you think people using QAD should start thinking about, or questions they might start asking, at this stage, with a lot of different product coming out, right? A lot of transition happening. What sorts of things would you be asking?
What's interesting is even with all the other products that are coming in here, a lot of the questions and issues that companies are facing are those same ones. We do, our master data is not as clean as it should be, and so forth. And
how did you manage that when you were at?
It's not a simple process. It's we were dealing with some elements of decentralization, if you will, as far as we had implementations in Europe and the U.S. We were able to go through a process as different standards were being put in place. Like they decided they were going to consolidate AP, and this is going back in the early 2000s. It's like, well, if we're going to do that, we have to have some data consistent. So that drove it, and knowing that was an initiative really garnered the support to make it happen, even if it was a little painful in time. So I think a lot of that, having nothing new, having top level support, but making sure the people that are actually implementing understand it, and that support doesn't waver, you can get through things a lot quicker. And tied to initiatives that are going on. We were doing some things that our executive leadership wanted good information on things. We're doing a lot of things to try and reduce inventory. It's like, well, if we're going to go on this path, instead of us spending our time trying to translate, well, this status code means this here and this one here.
Right.
Let's go through some of those exercises to clean up, even just take it off in chunks. What are the chunks that are going to have an impact rather than saying, I've got to do everything.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So those are common themes that still exist today.
It's still the question today. Yeah.
But with all the other products coming in, I mean, I think it's, the red zone product I think is pretty interesting because engagement is a huge thing on the shop floor.
Yeah.
And I've seen that in other companies, some of the work we're doing with non-QAD companies. You're seeing those challenges on top of ERP challenges they already have.
Right.
So.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Yeah, and then there's kind of the push towards the supplier relationship management with purchasing, the allocation networks. They have the digital e-commerce, purchase with WebJaguar, and then I'm sure there's more coming down the pipe.
Yeah.
So if you were at the helm, CIO at Tower today, and how would you, as either an IT person or if this new product that came into the QAD space now is a part of your specific, realm within the business, how would you evaluate that? Like, how would you think about that?
Well, I mean, the one that comes to the forefront, I think that would be probably top of the list as far as something to look at, without taking anything else into context, would be the whole supply chain side.
Yeah.
It's the ongoing challenge and so forth. That would be one, sitting down with the rest of the materials organizations, the purchasing organizations, and finding out what's working well right now, what's not.
Yeah.
And again, getting down to what are some potential areas that this might address.
Got it.
Again, I'm not one for, hey, here's the shiny new object, so we got to put it in. It's like, well, is it going to make a difference? And what's it going to take to get there?
Yeah. Okay. And, so how would, I mean, because we're talking a little bit like that reminded me a little bit reactionary, right? Like, okay, QAD brought this in, which is not necessarily bad because it could be also, bringing best practice or new concept that is a proactive idea in the business. But how did you bring some proactivity, in the business as well? Like, and then in evaluating, are there specific criteria or processes that we can implement into QAD to manage that, and then potentially bring in a consulting partner to help us with best practices, or hey, we need to get a shared service for AP, like you mentioned. How do we appropriately equip the team to do something like that? What's kind of the
some of the things we looked at in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times it was just staying abreast of what was out there and being able to bring those ideas back, and again, seeing that. What we were seeing, what were the questions that were coming back to us? Hey, can we do this?
Yeah.
And for me, it was always asking a question of, well, why? Why are you wanting to do that? Well, because of this. Well, why do you need to do that? Well, to do this. It's almost like taking that 5 why approach.
Yeah.
That ultimately you get to, they're talking about this and they're really needing this. Now, that can be at a very minute level.
Right.
But on a macro level, it's like, well, what are some of the challenges? And you've got your Doc Live thing, and we brought in Doc Live because we knew we had and the biggest challenge, we were running ERS, so we weren't dealing with a lot of invoices coming in, but where we were was in program management and launch. So you're launching a new frame line, and just the capital that was going into you're talking about spending $75 to $100 million on a new plant setup at the extreme end. Managing all that and having to go through an audit with the OEMs as far as we need to look at your invoices. They were doing paper routing of that, and program managers down at the plant. He's not in the office there to do that, and so we had seen the prior thing. We had talked to you guys a couple of times before that, and it finally got to a trigger point where we were able to. They brought up something that we were able to say. We've been looking at some things. This is something we should take a look at. And
I mean, to your point, the answer or the question you're trying to answer matters a ton.
Exactly.
And like I love that approach in asking why, because it also could translate departments. And we've had situations, I mean, I'm more familiar on the finance side, obviously, but it's like sometimes I'll ask enough questions and we'll get to the point where, hey, this is a purchasing issue. Like you guys need to go talk to somebody about purchasing. Like this is not the solution because the why got us to a different department completely.
Yeah, you're at the end of that tail trying to fix something.
Exactly.
And sources up front.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. It's like, 80% of your invoices aren't matching because the PO's wrong every time.
Exactly.
Like,
how do I solve that
right,
problem?
Exactly. Yeah, that's interesting. Cool. Well, I appreciate you giving us some time, during the QAD customer this is the QAD customer podcast, the QAD Midwest user group meeting. But any parting thoughts or anything for the QAD space that you'd like to, or anything that Adaptivity has coming down the line that you'd like to plug or anything like that?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping everyone's enjoying the conference here. It's good. I mean, it's a good turnout. It's good to see that.
Yeah, it was exciting.
It's good for all the partner community that that everyone's supporting that going forward. I mean, from our end, we just launched a new service we call Adaptivity Assist, which offers the help desk services, managed database. So giving you that one point, and I think that's one point place to shop, if you will. And I think that's a service that helps those ongoing QAD customers. And let's be honest, there's QAD customers that are thinking of moving away from the product, and if they're not here to advocate that, but if that's the decision they make, if they're going to focus their resources over to focusing on whatever direction they want to go, it still needs to support those existing QAD environments, and that's where we can help out on that.
Absolutely.
So that's an area that we just launched. We've been successful also with we call it our Adaptivity CXO, which does some things on the CIO level, just maybe that fractional assistance in different areas. We're doing that in some tier 1 automotive supplier.
I was apprehensive to bring that up because I've heard about that in the industry, and it's been really good, but I didn't know if that was the direction that you guys were trying to move.
That's not our core competency, but it's an area that we've got other people and some other CIOs on staff that do other work. So whether it's coming in and helping doing a CISO assessment, not saying we're the ones coming in and doing that security work, but high level, what as a CIO or CISO, what should you be thinking about, and what's your roadmap, and providing that sanity check. So the other things are more the strategic direction and some guidance, maybe firms that are have a director that they're trying to grow to something, bring that experience to bear. But that's outside of it. The assist is core QAD. The thing with us is we focus only on QAD. That's where our strength is. Right. And we're not diluting that with going off and selling NetSuite or other things. So we are focused there. And continuing, we're continuing to add staff and building that out. So it's cool. I would say, I think Daniel kind of summed it up. He says, we're the newest, oldest kids on the block, because we're probably one of the newest companies, but combined experience on staff is getting up there quite high.
Looking at the even just the list of the people that you got in your group, it's like everybody's come across at least one of these names. It's definitely true.
We've been around for a while, so I'd say, hey, come talk to us, see if there's something we can help you out with.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Scott. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Good to talk. We can catch up a little bit.
All right.
Cool. All right. Thanks man.